The wedding I attended was for the man I thought was dead. London, 2015. Rain that feels like it's trying to wash the city away. I was 19 when the phone call came. Leah? There's been an accident. Noah had borrowed his brother's car, silver VW with a dented bumper and a stubborn radio that only played the oldies. He was on his way to me. He'd texted, 5 minutes. Don't sleep. I'm bringing something stupid and sweet. He never arrived. They said the taxi clipped him at the junction. They said he spun, hit the rail, and the bonnet folded like paper. They said it was quick, as if quick makes it kind. I remember shoes by the door I never wore again. The ceiling crack in my bedroom that looked like a map. Mum's arms wrapping around me so tightly my ribs would snap. Dad speaking in practical sentences because practical sentences do not cry. The funeral smelled of lilies and umbrellas. I kept thinking, Noah hates lilies. He says they smell like posh hospitals. They lowered the coffin into the ground. My fingers shook so hard the white rose fell before the vicar even finished. Someone touched my elbow and I pulled away, the way you pull back from a hot stove too late. People brought food. People brought advice. People said time would make a home inside the ache, and I'd get used to living with a tenant I didn't invite. I learned to be polite to grief. I fed it. I watered it. I let it sleep in my bed. Weeks later, I found the ring box in Noah's hoodie pocket. Cheap silver, small blue stone, big courage. The receipt was there too. He'd bought it the afternoon he died. I wore the hoodie until the sleeves went thin, and the scent of his cologne faded it to nothing. Life is cruel but relentless. University, then work at a tiny bookshop in Marylebone. Customers who like quiet. A manager who liked numbers. A mirror that learned to hold my face without asking questions. There were men who tried, gentle ones, unkind ones, men who spoke about themselves until the dessert arrived. I didn't hate them. I just couldn't make room. Every time I reached for warmth, my hands found a gravestone. Years blurred into something like function. 10 years later, an ivory envelope arrived at the shop, my name written like a whisper that knew where to find me. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Emma Rose McKenna, and the groom's name made my vision swim. Noah Ellis Carter. I laughed. Then I couldn't breathe. Then I sat on the stockroom floor and held the invitation like it might bite. It had to be a mistake. A cousin with the same name. A cruel coincidence. A prank. Anything but the thing it said it was. I called Aria, my best friend, my emergency contact when the past knocks too loudly. Leah, an invitation came. To what? A wedding. And it's him. Silence. Then Aria's voice steady as a railing. Bring it to me. We sat at her kitchen table with tea that went cold between us. She examined the gold-foiled letters like a detective. The venue, St. Augustine's, Notting Hill. The date, 4 Saturdays from now. The photograph tucked inside, a candid, a woman laughing into a man's shoulder, his profile turned away, jawline familiar enough to make me dizzy. Do you want me to throw it away? Aria asked. I shook my head. I want to know I'm not mad. There's a special kind of torture reserved for the almost possible. It takes your breath and feeds you questions instead. That night I went to my parents' house. Mum opened the door before I knocked twice. You look pale, she said. Eat something. I got an invitation, I said, handing it over. Dad came from the lounge, glasses low on his nose. He read the card. His mouth tightened by a millimeter. Mum's hands trembled, just once, then stilled. It's a mistake, Dad said too quickly. People share names. Leah, Mum whispered, maybe, maybe don't go. Why not? It will hurt. I live with hurt, I said softly. I'd like the truth. Dad placed the invitation on the table like it was a hot coal. Sometimes the truth doesn't help. Sometimes it frees you, I said. Mum reached for my hand and missed. On the way home, the city looked like it did the night he died, headlights bleeding into rain. I stood outside St. Augustine's and stared at its stone face. I imagined a man at the altar turning towards me. Imagine the wrong face. Imagine the right one. When I finally slept, I dreamt of the blue stone ring and the words he never got to say. In the morning, I bought a dress I didn't deserve and circled the date. If Noah Carter was alive, I would see him with my own eyes. If he wasn't, I would bury the ghost that wears his name. Either way, something would end. The day of Emma and Noah's wedding arrived with sunlight that felt like mockery, warm, bright, hopeful. The kind of day people imagine when they pray for a perfect beginning. My beginning ended 10 years ago. I stood across the street from St. Augustine's, hands shaking around a bouquet I'd bought just to look like any other guest. My stomach churned, my heartbeat acting like it had a score to settle. I waited for logic to catch up to me. It didn't. When the church bells rang, a line of guests began to spill inside. Women in pastel dresses, men adjusting their ties, children tugging on hems and asking if weddings had cake. I took a breath that scraped my lungs and walked in behind them. The church smelled of roses and polished wood. Choir music softened the air. People murmured greetings. No one questioned me. Grief teaches you to become invisible. I sat near the back, close enough to see but far enough that no one would see me. The music shifted. Everyone stood. The groom walked in. At first all I saw was a suit. Charcoal gray, perfect fit, expensive taste. Then the face lifted. My heart stopped. It was him. Older, sharper, broader in the shoulders, but him. Noah Ellis Carter. My Noah. The boy whose laugh I still heard in quiet moments. The boy I buried. Alive. My vision blurred, but I held on to the wooden pew until my fingers hurt. He didn't look like a man who'd crawled out of death. He looked normal, whole. He smiled politely at the guests, stood at the altar, adjusted his cufflink. No limp, no scar, no hesitation. I felt sick. If he saw me, he didn't react. He didn't flinch. He didn't remember the girl who spent nights praying just to breathe again. Then Emma appeared, radiant, joyful, floating down the aisle with a softness that made her look like she'd never known pain. She reached him. He took her hands. The vicar spoke. Something about love, honor, faithfulness. I didn't hear the words. My mind repeated one sentence. He didn't die. He left. While the ceremony moved on, I watched the man I once planned a life with, my first everything, promise himself to someone else like I'd never existed. My chest burned. My hands were ice. When he said, "I do," my world split cleanly in two. A woman beside me dabbed joyful tears. I wanted to scream. When they kissed, something inside me cracked loud enough for me to hear it. As the final hymn played, I slipped out through the side door. Outside, people cheered as the couple exited, cameras flashing, confetti exploding like false joy. I hid behind a pillar. Noah helped Emma into the vintage car waiting at the curb, a silver VW with a dent on the bumper. My breath hitched. The same model, the same dent. My legs nearly collapsed. Arya's voice echoed through my head. Sometimes grief lies, sometimes memories do. No, this wasn't memory. This was proof. When the car pulled away, I ran. I reached the corner just as it turned. I sprinted after it, heels slipping, lungs burning, hard in my throat. The car stopped at a red light. For a second, for the first time in 10 years, I was close enough to knock on the window. He turned. Our eyes met. His froze. Not a flicker of recognition. Not fear, not guilt, not even surprise. Just polite confusion, the way you look at someone you've never met. Then the light turned green. He looked away. The car drove off. I stood in the street shaking, cars honking around me, the world moving while mine stayed shattered. That night I sat in my kitchen staring at the wedding invitation again. If Noah Carter was alive, if he had erased me, if he had chosen a life without me, then I needed answers, and I needed them now. I picked up my phone and called the one person who never lied to me. "Mom," I said, voice shaking, "tell me the truth." Her inhale on the other end was sharp enough to draw blood. The church doors were still closing behind the newlyweds when my phone slipped from my hand. Mum's sharp inhale still echoed in my ear, but I couldn't breathe long enough to ask again. I stumbled out of the reception hall and into the cold corridor, gripping the wall as if the building itself might tip over. My legs refused to move, but my mind kept screaming one thing. He's alive. Noah is alive. My heart was shaking so violently I thought it would bruise my ribs. Footsteps echoed behind me, quick, firm, familiar. I froze. Then I heard it, his laugh, the same laugh he used to hide behind whenever he was nervous, the laugh I'd memorized at 18. The laugh I buried. I turned slowly, and he stepped out of a side door in that charcoal gray suit, wiping his palms on his trousers like he was preparing for the biggest moment of his life. For a second, the world didn't move. Not the guests, not the lights, not even me. "Noah," I whispered, voice cracking like something old breaking open. He lifted his head, and our eyes met. The bouquet slipped from my hands, petals exploding on a marble floor. His face drained of color, his shoulders tensed, his jaw locked. Emma appeared behind him, still glowing from the ceremony. "Love, who is she?" the bride asked softly. He didn't answer. He stared at me with terror and recognition, swirling behind the lie forming in his throat. I took one step forward. He took one step back. "Do you know her?" Emma asked again, this time quieter. Noah blinked, swallowed, then said the sentence that cut deeper than the coffin they buried him in. "No, I don't." My entire body went numb. He brushed past Emma so quickly she almost stumbled. He pushed through the side exit doors into a quiet hallway I followed. My heels clicked too loudly, my pulse too loudly, everything too loud. When I caught up, he was leaning against the wall, one hand gripping the edge like he needed it to stay upright. "You're dead," I whispered. "You died. I buried you. I touched your coffin." His throat tightened. His breath shook, but his voice was barely audible. "I don't know you. A lie. A lie. A lie." His eyes, God, his eyes betrayed him. The panic, the guilt, the history. "Why are you alive?" I choked out. "Why are you here? Why did you?" He flinched at every question. "Please," he said, voice trembling, "don't do this. Not here." A distant call echoed down the corridor. "Noah! Photos!" He shut his eyes like a man choosing a cage over the truth. "I have to go," he whispered. "No," I said, grabbing his sleeve. "You don't walk away from me again." He pulled free, not violently, almost gently, like he'd rehearsed the gesture for years. "I'm sorry," he said, breaking. "I really am." Then he walked away. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't stop the tears that came without permission. He reached the doors leading back to the reception, paused, looked at me one last time, Then he disappeared into the life I once prayed to share. I stood alone in the empty corridor, trembling so hard my body felt foreign. He was alive. He knew me. He lied. And he was married. Everything I buried 10 years ago clawed its way back to the surface. By the time I found my phone on the floor again, Mum was still on the line. "Mum," I gasped, voice broken. "Tell me the truth." Her silence wasn't confusion. It was fear. Mum didn't speak. Not a breath. Not a word. Just silence heavy enough to feel like a confession. "Mum," I said again, gripping the phone to steady my shaking. "Tell me, what did you do?" After a long exhale, she whispered, "Come home." No excuses, no confusion. Just those two words. My knees weakened. I grabbed my coat, left the church, and walked until the cold numbed my skin. The world had moved on, but I was back at 18. When I entered the house, Mum was pacing in the living room. Dad sat in his armchair, staring at the carpet like it held every truth he avoided. "I saw him," I said quietly. "Today, at the wedding. He's alive." Mum's face shifted. Recognition, not shock. Dad's jaw tightened. "Tell me everything," I demanded. Mum reached for me. I stepped back. "I'm not here for comfort. I want the truth." She lowered her head. "We never meant to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I asked. Dad finally spoke. "Because you were too young to tie your life to a boy with nothing." Mum added, "You had a scholarship, a future. Noah had no money, no family, no direction. We were afraid for you." "So you killed him?" I whispered. "No," Mum cried. Dad cut in. "There was a crash that night, just not his." My throat tightened. "A boy his age died," Dad said. "Burned, unidentifiable. The parents agreed to a closed casket. We made arrangements." My mind reeled. "You replaced the body," I whispered, "with someone else." Mum sobbed. "You said you'd follow him anywhere. You were ready to throw your life away." "So you threw him away instead?" My voice cracked. They didn't answer. I grabbed my keys and left before they could speak again. The cemetery was silent, like it had been hiding the truth for 10 years. I walked straight to Noah's grave. The stone looked untouched. Anger rose instead of grief. A groundskeeper approached. "You visiting the Carter boy?" he asked. I nodded. "Strange grave," he said. "No flowers, no family, nothing for 10 years. Almost like it didn't matter." "It didn't," I whispered, "because nothing was ever buried here." He frowned, but I was already walking away, my heart pounding. No body, no death, no accident, no closure. Every part of my grief, every step of healing, was built on a lie my parents created. That night I sat on my bedroom floor, surrounded by old diaries, photos and letters. Everything felt like evidence. Why didn't I question the sealed coffin? Why didn't I wonder why his mother vanished? Because I trusted them, but now I needed answers from only one person. I changed clothes, grabbed my bag, and headed toward the wedding venue with fire burning in my chest. If Noah Ellis Carter was alive, if he ran from me once, if he lied again, then I'd find him. And this time, I wouldn't let him walk away. The hotel where the reception was held still smelled of roses and champagne when I arrived, but everything inside me smelled like smoke. I walked past the guests drifting toward the ballroom, past the laughter, past the clinking glasses. My heartbeat drowned out the music. I wasn't here for celebration, I was here for truth. I found him behind the venue near the service entrance, standing alone with his hands on his knees, like he had run out of breath or courage, maybe both. He looked up when I stepped into the light. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I closed the distance between us and said the words I'd been carrying for 10 years. Why? He looked away. You shouldn't be here. I buried you, I whispered. I touched a coffin. I mourned you. And all this time you were alive. His shoulders tensed. His jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. I stepped closer, voice shaking with anger and grief tangled together. Tell me why you let me think you died. He shut his eyes as if the truth itself was a wound he didn't want touched. I shouldn't be talking to you, he said. If you walk away again, I warned, I swear I'll tear my life apart until I find the truth myself. That broke him. He inhaled sharply, voice trembling. Your parents, he said, they came to my house the week after your birthday. They told me you had a scholarship, a real future, and I was just a boy working night shifts trying to help my mom pay rent. I blinked. What does that have to do with anything? They said I was holding you back, that you were making plans to leave school, to follow me, that you were willing to give up everything for me. My breath caught. It was true I had. His voice cracked. They told me I was ruining your life, that loving me was the one mistake you would never recover from. My hands shook. So you agreed to disappear? He swallowed hard. They offered money, enough to move, enough to help my mum, enough to pretend the accident was real. My stomach twisted. So you took their money and walked away from me? He looked up, eyes full of a decade's worth of guilt. No, he whispered. I took their money because I loved you. The words slammed into my chest. I thought leaving you would save you, he said. I thought hating me would be easier than loving me while drowning beside me. I stepped back as if he'd struck me. You should have let me choose, I cried. He broke. I know. The door behind us opened. Emma stood there, the bride, veil trembling, mascara smudged. She had heard everything. Noah, she whispered. Is this true? He froze. She looked between us, at my tears, at his guilt, at the truth that hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning for years. I'm not marrying someone who's still in love with another woman, she said. Her voice was steady, but her heart was breaking. He tried to speak. Emma, no, she said. You deserve the life they stole from you, and I deserve someone who isn't haunted. She removed the ring with shaking hands, placed it in his palm, and walked back inside with the dignity of someone choosing herself. Silence swallowed the night. Noah stood there staring at the ring like it weighed the whole world. Then he looked at me. For the first time, he didn't hide the truth. I never loved anyone like I loved you, he said, but I can't build another life out of a grave someone else buried. Tears blurred my vision. So what now? He exhaled. Long, tired, freeing. Now, he said quietly, I walk away. Not from you, but from the boy they forced me to become. I reached for him. He stepped back. If they stole my life once, he whispered, I won't let anyone choose for me again. He turned, walked into the night. No hesitation, no looking back. Just a man reclaiming the life that was taken from him. I stood in the darkness, shaking, heart splintered. But for the first time in 10 years, I understood. Sometimes the ending isn't reunion. Sometimes the ending is truth. The end.